Story 1. This was a few years ago when I was working security at a nightclub in my hometown. On this particular night, we were short-staffed on bartenders, so when our bartenders went to the bathroom, the manager would take over their bar. I was monitoring the upstairs bar and VIP seating areas when it happened. I got a call over my headset asking for our biggest security guard. Unfortunately, he was downstairs dealing with someone having an epileptic seizure. I have no idea why they were in a club when they had epilepsy, but there you go. I go over to the bar and ask my manager what is going on. He looks over at this entitled woman next to the bar and says she needs to go. So I turn to her and say, "Okay, looks like you need to leave." She looks me up and down and says, "I'll leave when the real security gets here." Now, I am not a small guy. I am 6'2" and 210 pounds. Granted, I am not as big as our biggest security guy, but still I was kind of shocked by this statement. I tell her again that she needs to go, and at this point I am a couple of feet away from her. She takes a step forward and says, "I will go when you get out of my face." Taking a step back, I say, "Okay." She does and says the same thing again, and I take another step back, once again repeating myself. She then said, "Don't touch me," and I tell her that I was not planning on it if she would just leave. Finally, her friend steps in and apologizes and says that they will go. I say thank you. After a couple seconds of talking, Karen says, "I will go this way." Now, upstairs there are 2 stairs that go down. One goes to the front door and the other goes to the dance floor. Guess which one she chose. As she started walking to the one that went to the dance floor, I said, "See, now you broke our deal," and I went and bear hugged her and picked up and started carrying her to the stairs that went to the front door. She was not a fan of this and immediately grabbed my face with her fingernails and dug in. She was not scratching, just digging them in and screaming. As soon as we get to the stairs, she decides now is the time to deadweight. So I let go of her. It was at this time one of our barbacks had just got off the service elevator to deliver ice to the bar and saw her laying on the floor. So he helped Karen up and I saw the next bit in slow motion. I knew exactly what was going to happen, so I braced myself. She immediately slaps me in the face with the back of her hand. I take a deep breath and say again for the last time, "You need to go." The barback then comes fast and helps me kick her out of there. As soon as I get back in the building, the front desk girls see my face and immediately grab hand sanitizer and start rubbing it on the claw marks. As I walked back upstairs, a customer told me he was impressed with the way I handled that because he would have hit her. Which is cool, I guess, but it's my job to be professional, so obviously that was never going to happen. My manager told me I could take a break to cool off, so I literally went and sat in the fridge. Story 2. I was working a job that required me to operate in one of our offices overseas. We would have regular business expenses, and the receipts for those expenses were naturally in the language of the country where we were stationed. These expenses included items such as printer ink, office equipment, cleaning services, and marketing costs, pretty standard business purchases. Around this time, we received a new vice president assigned to oversee our region. He worked out of the company's head office in Los Angeles. This vice president introduced what he thought was a brilliant idea, to hire a translator to go through all of our receipts in order to make sure no unnecessary or improper charges were being submitted. At first, it seemed fair enough. However, the issue arose when the new process required us to send all our receipts to the translator. She would translate them and only then submit them for reimbursement. The problem was that this translator was a real Karen type of personality. She constantly demanded better scans of receipts, often after we had already discarded the originals. She would even argue over whether we got the best deal on what we purchased, questioning if our spending was reasonable. I recall one transaction in particular where we had purchased about $200 worth of ink cartridges. She asked why I had not ordered them online from a well-known website. I explained that the website was out of stock at the time, and since we urgently needed the ink, we purchased it from a local store. She responded by saying I had spent too much money. I told her politely that it was not her concern, since her responsibility was only to translate the receipts. She replied that if I wanted her to submit my expenses, I needed to be nicer to her. That frustrated me, and I reminded her that she was a translator, not a vice president, and that her role was not to instruct me on how to do my job. After that encounter, she became even more particular about reviewing my expenses. One day, I came into the office early to call her, hoping we could smooth things over. Instead, she told me directly that I had upset her, and because of that she expected my expense reports to be flawless. If they were not, she simply would not submit them. I warned her that if she continued with this behavior, she might not have a job for much longer. She laughed, wished me good luck, and then hung up on me. A few months later, we had our annual company meeting in Los Angeles. After the meeting, a group of us went to a bar, and I took the opportunity to strike up a conversation with our vice president. I steered the discussion toward expenses and asked him how much he typically reimbursed each month for employees working out of our overseas office. He told me it was usually around $3,000 to $4,000. I acted surprised and asked, "Is that all?" He nodded and confirmed, saying, "Yes, it rarely gets above $4,000. I then casually asked him how our translator, Karen, was doing. He responded that she was doing a good job. I nodded and followed up with, "How many fraudulent expenses has she caught so far?" It is important to note here that every employee who submitted expenses was already well paid. They would have had to be extremely foolish to risk their position by trying to skim a little extra money through fake or inflated expense reports. The vice president looked puzzled and asked, "What do you mean?" I explained. "Well, you hired her to ensure that all the expenses being reimbursed were legitimate, right? Her job is simply to translate the receipt, correct?" He agreed. I continued, "So the purpose is essentially to make sure nobody is submitting any questionable expenses, right?" He admitted that was the idea. I smiled and asked again, "So, how many fraudulent expenses has she actually caught?" He thought for a moment and then admitted, "I don't think she has caught any." That was my opening. I asked, "And how much are we paying her?" He said it depended on her workload, but usually between $2,500 and $3,000 per month. I smiled and said, "So, does it really make sense to pay someone $3,000 a month just to translate $3,000 worth of receipts?" He tried to justify it by saying, "Well, she ensures we aren't getting fraudulent expenses." I countered, "But you just said she hasn't caught any in the last 9 months, and the expenses are always between $3,000 and $4,000. As long as the reports stay in that range, wouldn't it be reasonable to assume they're legitimate? And couldn't you simply bring in a translator on a contract basis if the expenses ever got complicated?" At that point, I could see him starting to recognize the point I was making. I added, "Imagine the savings. We would probably save over $40,000 a year. That's a significant amount, wouldn't you agree?" The vice president tried to defend his position again, saying, "But she does a good job." I countered, "Yes, but you could frame this as saving the company $40,000 a year, while also establishing a baseline for judging expense reports. Cutting unnecessary costs always looks good for the bottom line, and it can boost end-of-year bonuses too, right?" For context, I already knew that a large portion of a vice president's compensation package was tied to company profit margins. The higher the margins at the end of the year, the larger the bonus. When I mentioned cost savings, I could see the twinkle in his eye. We carried on with the rest of the evening, and a few weeks later we received an email from the vice president. It stated that going forward, we would be submitting all expenses directly to the administrative office for reimbursement, and that the company had let go of Karen, the translator. Story 3. So, it is nighttime right now. The entitled aunt from my previous story, the same one who broke my headphones, supposedly bought a PlayStation wallet card worth $4,000 in my country's currency, which is a lot. The moment she gave me that card today, I knew something was suspicious, and the whole situation went like this. Me. I will try and redeem this for a check. Entitled aunt. Oh, don't worry, we just bought it. It should work fine. Really? That's nice of you. Nice, uncle. I really don't know why she suddenly changed her mood, but she went in the afternoon and bought you this. Still, it's good that she did. Nice cousin. Yeah, Mom isn't that type of person. She said this quietly, but I heard it and giggled. Oh really? Then I can redeem it to confirm, right? Nice uncle. Sure. We don't have a problem. Entitled aunt. It's bad manners to check a gift right now. You can just check it when we go home, she panicked as she said this. That was the exact moment I knew something was wrong. Me? Sorry, but I think it's perfectly polite to check if something works fine or not. My nice uncle sighed and said, Go ahead and check. She won't interrupt. I opened my laptop, went to the Sony website, redeemed the code, and it was already used. Me? Really? I should have known it was already used. Check it in your PlayStation 4. Maybe it's a system bug. Nice uncle. I am coming with you to check. So we went to my room to check the code, and it was indeed already used. Now my uncle got angry, and we went back to the living room. Guess what? She was not there. Me. What happened? My cousin, holding her arm, said, As you went into the room, she just went outside to take a taxi. I tried to stop her, but she scratched my arm. At this point, my cousin was sobbing and crying loudly, not even able to speak clearly. She stuttered through her words, and I wrote what I heard from her sobbing. Uncle, I have to deal with this now. I am sorry that the card didn't work, but as I said, I will buy you new headphones as good as the old ones. I just told him that it didn't matter about the headphones anymore, but I didn't want to meet her again. At this point, she had truly crossed her limit. A fake gift? She could have just stayed home instead of making me feel terrible. In the end, my mom bandaged my cousin's arm where she got scratched, and my uncle and cousin went home. I couldn't wait for the drama they were going to have at their house. Oh boy, I was excited, because when my uncle gets angry, he can't be stopped, especially when it comes to me or my cousin. Update, so this is the continuation. After she left running, my cousin was bandaged, and they went to their house. Later this evening, almost 4 hours ago, my uncle came back to our house, literally dragging my aunt along. My cousin was already laughing with a huge bandage on her arm, and I was too, because my aunt honestly looked like a little kid whining for something. Once they came into the house, the conversation went like this. Uncle, now, if you don't apologize, I am done with this and will file for a divorce. Aunt, but he is the one who should apologize. Me, really? Are you out of your mind? My dad, I am not going to deal with this. I am going to call the police if you break one more thing. Uncle, and I won't stop him. He released her from his tight grip. Now just apologize, and we can go. I will buy him his things later tomorrow. Aunt, I won't apologize to a disrespectful brat like him. Cousin, really, can't you just apologize? My cousin even called her mom by her real name. Aunt, how dare you call me by my real name? Cousin, if you are acting that unreasonable, then I will call you by your real name. My cousin was showing a surprising level of sass for her age. Aunt, oh, then who raised you? Who gave you food? Who bought things for you? Cousin, Dad. At this point, my dad and I were laughing on the ground. That was such a perfect comeback. Me. Now, if you are not going to apologize, I would like you to leave and never come back. Now, where I live, people can get triggered easily, and I think she did, because she slapped me. Dad, stop. I am calling the police. Cousin, what was that? Mom? Uncle, why did you slap him? What do you think you're doing? That slap was hard. My ears are still ringing, and that's why I am writing this 4 or 5 hours later. Me. That hurts. For goodness sake, I literally shouted. Aunt, you got what you deserved, little pest. Yes, she literally called me that. At that moment, we could hear sirens coming toward our house, and everyone in the neighborhood stepped outside. To make a long story short, the police arrived and asked what had happened. Everyone told the truth. The entitled aunt claimed that nothing had happened there and that they should be dealing with real crimes instead of family drama. After hearing the full story, the police officer responded, "Child abuse is a crime. Take her." In the end, my uncle said he would file for a divorce from the entitled aunt, and she is now at the police station for further interrogation. She will also be formally charged. Story 4. So, a bit of context. I am currently living at home, but quietly searching for a place to live, without telling my parents. My dad served in the military on active duty, but now he is in the reserves and guards the gates at our local military base. He has some form of post-traumatic stress from his active duty years, but he refuses to admit it or seek help for it. Unfortunately, I am usually the target of his angry outbursts. My mom graduated from nursing school last year and is now working as a nurse. She and my dad have been married for 11 years, and together they had my little sister, who is 8 years old. Because my dad's relationships with his previous children did not work out, he has developed a hyperfixation on keeping her happy. He has always been somewhat distant toward me, but that's a story for another time. For now, let's get into what happened. One morning, after I put my sister on the bus, I decided to relax for the day before going over to my girlfriend's house that evening. It was my first real day off in a while since I worked 2 jobs. My dad was leaving for work, and before he left, he told me I needed to get a haircut that day. I told him I couldn't afford one and reminded him that I had just gotten a haircut 2 weeks prior, so my hair was still short. He said he didn't care and told me to. Just borrow money from your mom or your girlfriend. Just get it done, no excuses. Then he left. About an hour later, I called my mom and explained the situation. She sighed but didn't argue, though I told her to hang on. I called the barber shop I usually go to and asked if my regular barber was working that day. Unfortunately, he wasn't. That was a problem because every other barber in the area had either messed up my hair badly before or refused to cut it altogether, since I'm mixed and have thick curly hair that many barbers were afraid to handle. So, I called my mom back and let her know my barber wasn't working that day, but would be in the next day. She said that was fine and told me to just go tomorrow. We went on with our day as usual. After my mom got home from work, I headed out to my girlfriend's house around 5 p.m. About 15 minutes after I arrived. My mom called me. "Mom, do they have hair clippers there?" Me, "I don't think so. Why?" Mom, "Pop says if you don't come home with a haircut, he's cutting your hair off." My girlfriend overheard this, and having listened to what I go through with him all the time, she immediately said, "What the heck? No. You are not going to let him do that to you. That's abusive." Mom, "Am I on speakerphone?" Me, "No." Mom, "I'm going to go. I'm tired of getting yelled at today." Click. I was dumbfounded at this point, but I quickly snapped out of it, remembering the man I was dealing with and how common this sort of behavior was for him. I looked at my girlfriend, and admittedly, I started searching her house for clippers, even dog clippers. When I couldn't find any, I grew desperate enough to ask her to cut my hair with scissors. I know it sounds ridiculous, but you have to understand how much this man intimidates me. He and I are about the same height, but he is much stronger than I am and very intimidating, and he knows it. He has punched me in the chest before because I supposedly wasted the tire shine for his car. Instead of giving me normal punishments, he would make me do military exercises for 3 to 4 hours over even the smallest things. If I woke up late, exercise. If the dishes weren't done, exercise. If I wore clothes he didn't like, exercise. At one point, he grabbed me by the collar and held me against a wall in front of family friends because he thought I sighed at him. Anyway, after failing to find clippers, my girlfriend told me to stop and calm down. She insisted that I shouldn't go home if he was threatening me like that. I told her I didn't have much of a choice. I had work the next day. My uniform was at home, and since I had only recently started my second job, I couldn't call out. After a while of talking, we decided to drive back to my house, pick up my work clothes, and then return to her house since her mom had already said I could stay with them for a little while. I called my mom back and explained what I was going to do, but she lost it. Mom, no, come home. Me, I'm not coming home to be shaved bald. Mom, please, just come home, I'll talk to him. Me, no, I'm coming to grab my clothes and staying here for the night. Mom, this will only make things worse. Me, I don't feel safe there tonight. Mom, forget you, click. I got in my car and told my girlfriend to follow me in hers. At this point, it was about 7:45 p.m. as we started driving. My mom called me back. Mom, please come home. I talked to him, and he promised to keep it civil. Me, I'm grabbing my clothes and leaving, and my girlfriend is coming with me. Mom, no, she's not. Keep her away from my house, or I'll call the police. Me, she's here to make me feel safe. Mom, if you think you're leaving in that car, you're wrong. That's not your car, that's the car we let you use. Me, okay, my girlfriend is in her car, so we'll just take hers back to her house. My mom then began going on about how this was going to make her have a stroke, saying that if I didn't come home she would call an ambulance for herself, and that I was putting her in a very difficult position. Unfortunately, I eventually gave in. I told her I was coming home and hung up. I then called my girlfriend, who had been driving behind me the whole time, and told her what was happening. She told me not to do it, but I explained what my mom said about having a stroke. Since my mom has had them before, it seemed very possible. My girlfriend didn't like the idea, but I asked her to wait at the entrance of my neighborhood for at least an hour. I told her that if she wanted to leave after that, she could. But if I didn't call her by 1 a.m. to say I was okay, she should call the police. She agreed. When I walked into the house, my mom hugged me while crying. My sister was still confused about what was going on. After my mom's breakdown, we went into the bathroom and she shaped up my beard a little, which was the only thing that actually needed to be done. About an hour later, my dad came home. Things didn't remain civil like she had promised. As soon as my dad got home, things escalated quickly. He started yelling at me about how I never listen. He threatened me by saying we could step outside and fight right then and there. And he made it clear he wasn't afraid of jail time because he had already served it before. He went on, saying he had poured 10 years of his life into me and that he was going to get something out of it. Whether that meant I got a good job and supported myself, or whether it meant him intimidating me into obedience. He repeated that he was not my dad and never would be. For context, he doesn't allow me to call him Dad. He insists I call him Pops. That was actually the very first conversation we ever had when I was 8 years old. He reminded me again that there was only one man in this house, and it was him. If I wanted to act like a man, then I should go out into the real world and do so, but while I was living under his roof, I had to do whatever he said. He even explained that when he asked me to do something, he wasn't really asking, he was telling me, just in a slightly nicer way. He then warned me that for my own safety, I should never raise my voice at his wife again. Through all of this, my mom didn't step in or say anything. I just stood there, taking it. He kept going on, and I felt trapped. Eventually, I went downstairs to my room and called my girlfriend to let her know I was okay. For reference, he had started yelling at me at around 9:20, and I didn't get to call her until 11:30. I had been standing there being lectured and threatened for over 2 hours straight. A few weeks later, I'm still living at home. I am actively searching for a place to move into, but I'm stuck here for at least a few more months. I have more stories like this, and I might eventually end up sharing them as well. Update: I finally moved out. Well, I've moved out. I no longer live in the same state anymore and now live with and take care of my grandfather. Surprisingly, it was actually my stepfather's idea that he and my mom brought to me back in November of last year. I later found out it was just another tactic for him to try to control me, but it backfired when I actually went through with it. He, of course, refused to let me take my car with me. And since I knew I was going to need a way to get around after moving, I started researching. I realized the lowest monthly car payment I could get was about $350, due to my age, my short credit history, and the fact that I had one speeding ticket. I was late for work, and going just 7 miles over on the interstate cut me some slack. On top of that, insurance wouldn't be much cheaper. That's when my friend suggested I look into getting a motorcycle. The monthly payments are cheaper, and so is the insurance. He was right. I went out and bought one. I'm still paying it off, but the monthly payments are about $150 less than any car loan I could find, and the insurance is only around $35 a month. When my stepfather found out, he tried to guilt-trip me and said I went behind his back, claiming I should have talked to him first. I told him, "I didn't use your name, your credit, or your money. I owe you no explanation. You were completely fine leaving me with no vehicle once I moved, so I figured it out myself." He tried to yell and call me disrespectful, but I was heading to work anyway, so I just left. Fast forward to July, the month of the move. I was getting excited. I had already given my job notice and started packing my room. Then, disaster struck because of course it had to. My bike started acting up. I took it to the shop, and it cost me quite a bit to repair, more than I initially thought. Right after that, I had to go to the doctor for an emergency, which wasn't covered by my insurance. Needless to say, all my savings were basically gone, and I still had to rent the truck. I was devastated, but my mom said we should go anyway since I had already made the appointment. She suggested maybe they would accept payments. We went, but of course, they only accepted payments through a third-party app that I wasn't pre-qualified for with enough funds. I was crushed, thinking I would have to push back my move or cancel it altogether. That's when my mom stepped in and just paid for it outright. I hadn't asked her to, and she didn't even hesitate. When I asked why, she said, "You've been looking forward to this for a while. I'm not going to let you miss the chance. Plus, you can always just pay me back over time since they won't let you do that here." I wanted to cry. I just hugged her. My stepdad almost immediately called her and asked what she had just spent that money on. He set it up so he gets notified whenever money comes out of her account. She told him what she did. He tried to blow up at her, but she shut him down, telling him I would pay them back and that he needed to calm down. He was upset, but never brought it up again. I started loading everything into the truck once we got home, and a few days later, we were off. My family came with me to help, which I appreciated. It was an 18-hour drive to my grandfather's house. For context, he was completely on board with this plan and excited about it, since he has been rather lonely after my grandmother passed in April. When we got there, I wanted to start unpacking immediately, but told my family they could rest. The next day came, and I was the only one unloading the truck. I didn't mind much, it was my stuff, after all, but I found it a little funny that my family said they came to help, but seemed happy to sit back. My mom was talking with my grandpa, my stepdad was playing his video game, and my sister was watching him. I kept unloading boxes until one of my grandfather's neighbors offered a hand. Then another, and another. By the end, 11 people I had never even met were helping me move boxes and furniture out of the van and into the house, with my grandfather's permission, of course. My mom got furious with my stepdad. She eventually started helping too, because he just sat there, playing his game, perfectly fine with not lifting a finger. In his mind, he had already done enough by simply coming along, even though he hadn't even driven the truck. He drove our SUV with the family's suitcases while my mom and I drove the moving truck the whole way. My mom scolded him, telling him to get up and help. He grumbled, moved 1 or 2 boxes, and then sat back down. At that point, I didn't care much anymore because most of the work was already done thanks to the kind neighbors. My mom and sister apologized for not helping sooner, but he said nothing. The last few days they were there, my mom and sister did help me unpack. My stepdad only stepped in when he thought we were about to damage my grandfather's property. On their last day, he even tried to convince my grandfather to impose rules and boundaries on me, but my grandfather just laughed or nodded politely. They left the next day, and I have now been here for a little over a month and a half. It has been great. My grandfather and I both enjoy electronics and working on computers. He is fascinated by my 3D printers and always asks questions about them. I'm planning to get him into it since he enjoys projects. I also have a new job as an overnight stocker at a large retail store and will be starting college next year to get my degree in network management. For anyone who commented on my original post or messaged me afterward, I want to say thank you. Your kind words helped me through these last 2 years. This will be my final update on this story, and I truly appreciate all the support. P.S. My stepdad and I are doing much better now that I've moved out. I think being able to interact with him on my own terms has helped our relationship. We don't talk often, but when we do, it's pleasant. I may not like him much, but I can't deny that he has had my back a few times throughout the years and did step up to being a father, even if he wasn't the best. I don't know if I'll ever fully forgive him for the things he's done, but I am willing to work toward peace with him over time. Story 5. This is an old story. I just remembered it again for some reason. I was working as a cleaner staff person on a construction site, and the boss man Bob didn't like me, because I was a young woman in a man's world. He was an old and bitter man. His life was so boring that he came 2 or 4 hours early to the site, almost every morning, even when he had the day off. Other workers were nice to me, especially John, who is important to the story. John was a good man, nice, funny, and kind. But to the main story. This happened when the building was close to being finished. I was cleaning inside that building when I heard Bob's voice. "Hey, why is this place looking like this?" Me, looking around, like what? Like this. There are tools all over the place. You should keep this place clean. This is a construction site. The tools are there because workers use them. What do you want me to do? Collect them? Yes, I need you to collect all tools that are not in use right now. You want me to collect all the tools that are not in use right now? Like take them outside to the storage, so people need to walk there to get them again? What is your problem? Do what I say. Collect all of them, and don't do anything else before that. He then walked off. Just walked off. First I was mad, but then I thought why not? And so I started to collect all of them. I even found a wheelbarrow that I used to take even more tools on one trip. I took all of the tools to storage. I kept different subcontractors' tools to different piles, so no tools were lost or mixed. At some point John stopped me. He was very puzzled. "What are you doing? We use these tools." "I know. I'm sorry that this makes things hard for you. But Bob told me to collect all of the tools that are not in use right now, so I do." "Why would he make you do that?" "I don't know. I'll go talk to him." Soon, John comes back. "You didn't lie. Bob just told me to let you do your job," he sighed. "Well then, let me continue doing my job." I then took more tools to the storage. After like an hour or two, other workers started to put up signs like, "I use this," or "This is mine," and of course I didn't take those tools again. I had to explain my surprising enthusiasm to steal people's tools lots of times. But all of the workers were nice, so they just took more cardboard or listboard pits and made more signs. Soon Bob started to note the signs of the workers, and he wanted answers. "What are these signs?" "Workers put them up." "Yeah, but why?" Before I had time to answer, John intervened. "You told her to collect all of the tools. She did it so good that we didn't keep up. So we put signs to mark tools that we use." "Why didn't you stop her?" "You told me not to. And because I have been running a gathering tool, I was not able to do anything else." I added. "Why not?" I ironically answered, "Because the tools are constantly coming back inside, and no one uses them."